Hi gang, how's it going? Yes, it's time for your monthly dose of Effin Hormones, the podcast about perimenopause and beyond. It's me and my three mates, Bina, Terri and Helen. Now we've all struggled with our hormones at one point or another, and that's why we like to spend our time swearing, laughing and generally supporting each other and you through it all. Now coming up, you're going to hear from someone who can help with the supporting side of things. Hazel Schowell is a business psychologist and coach who's got loads of great insights in how to cope with it all. She's also very cool because, get this, she's got these coaching cards that say, I'll handle it on one side and fuck it on the other. Love it. It's so up our street, that, isn't it? It's very Effin Hormones. We cannot wait to hear what she's got to say. But first, as always, let's have a little catch up with the gang. No Bina today, sadly, but how are you guys doing, Terri and Helen?
Hello. Good.
Happy New Year.
Good. Happy New Year.
Well, how is 2024 for you so far, Terri?
No, it's good. It's good. It's been. I had a break over Christmas and New Year, and then back to normality the last few days. It's been a bit of a bang back to earth, but I'm still doing. So I don't know if you guys are doing this, but a few of the people on our Effin Hormones Facebook page have joined me doing the 30 days of yoga with Adrienne. As you know, we always go on about yoga with Adrienne. So yeah, we've got a few people doing that. We've got, I think Susan is doing it, and Alison, and I think my friend Sarah and my friends Niti are doing it as well. So it's good to have other people doing it because it encourages me to do it as well. Because otherwise I can just suck it off. But are you doing it as well, Helen? Brilliant.
I'm a day behind, but I'm doing all right.
Excellent.
I'm 2 years behind, so I think you're doing better than me.
I know, we're letting you off, Emma, because you have got a baby, darling.
I know.
Do baby yoga.
You just get in the way. Basically, I am blaming her, but I'm blaming her for the fact that I've not a member of the gym anymore. I've not done a yoga class for 2 years, and I don't really go running anymore. So I'll do F all, basically. So I really do need to pull my finger out and do something.
Could you not put her in the buggy and run with the buggy?
Oh, people do that, don't they?
I know, it's a bit poncy though, isn't it?
Can run with buggies.
Yeah, maybe not.
I'd probably fall over and break my ankle, knowing me.
Put a coffee on it or something, go for a walk instead.
Do you know what, Ems? It will come back. Listen, this is what it's like. I mean, I remember this. You know, this is what it's like. I mean, and to be honest, you're still sort of probably lifting her and carrying her up, so you've probably got dead strong arms. But it is like that at the start. But you know, like my little boy's 10 now, and I've got my little sort of routine in the morning where I can do it every morning, and it'll come back. It'll come back at some point. So don't you worry. You don't beat yourself up about it. Just
yeah, you can't really do yoga with a rug rat, can you? Because they just get in the way. They're just constantly shuffling onto your yoga mat. The one or two times I've tried it in the last 2 years.
It's like yoga with Benji, yoga with Neve.
Yeah, not as good as Benji, not as chilled as Benji. No,
Benji being the dog in Adrienne. If anyone's wondering who we're talking about. But yeah, that's me. Yeah, so I had a good break to sort of start the year, and now it's like back. But yeah, just keeping going with the yoga, and that's, I think, just getting through a day at a time is just sometimes quite a feat in itself, to be honest.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What about you, Helen?
Well, I was going to talk about something that actually I started last year, but I've just been sort of reflecting on it because it's that kind of time of year, isn't it, where you sort of think about what you've been doing. And last year I started going to Reiki. And I've talked about acupuncture before because, as we've talked about many times in this podcast, I've really struggled with my gut health down the years, and that's been a perimenopausal thing. And for a good few years, actually, I genuinely don't think I could have gone to work had I not been going for acupuncture regularly. It was the only, and I didn't know what was wrong with me at the time, and blah, blah, blah. It was amazing. And I moved away, so I haven't got my regular acupuncturist anymore. It's just dropped off. And I found this Reiki sessions down the road. And actually I went because they do these, like, have you ever been for a gong spa? Have you ever had the gongs where you lie on the...
Oh, I had
have you been for the gongs?
Years ago.
Helen, you do the weirdest things.
Yeah. Well, look, you know I'm a bit of a secret hippie, right?
Yeah, not so secret anymore.
No, I don't care, really. I always like to approach this by saying, well, I think there's a scientific explanation behind all of these things. We just haven't discovered how to explain it yet. Chakras. That's my approach. Do you know what I mean? So, chakras, right? Funnily enough, I was going to talk about this. So I went because they were doing a gong spa. Right, if you've not been, right, you lie on the ground and they've got these great big
like
gongs and they play the gongs. Well, but the shimmering, the vibes, man, the sound vibrations sort of like rattle your cells apparently, because you feel it, when you've got like, you're all laughing at me. I know you're all taking the piss, but anyway.
Sorry, you can see.
Can't do that, Helen. There'll be nothing left.
All right, you buggers. I'm going to my ayahuasca retreat next year, whatever.
Oh my God.
Oh yes, do.
Anyway, so I went because of the gong spa. Didn't realise they did Reiki. I was expecting a bunch of hippies. No, it's not. It's actually some really dead, down-to-earth Manx and a woman who's a Zumba teacher as well. And, and honest to God, I had this Reiki session and it was like I was having the most powerful acupuncture I've ever had. Afterwards I felt freaking great, like really great. And I've been going.
Is this the one they just put their hand? Sorry to be ignorant, but there will be people listening that don't know what the hell it is. So is this when they like put their hands around you, but they don't actually touch you, and the vibes reach you
over you?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Except they do touch. They do touch your head. They just touch your head because there's like a large group of us, and so they've got the gongs going on, and then a couple of people are going round, and they touch the head, and then touch the top of the head, and then they put their arms over your heart, so you can feel the warmth from it, but you're not being touched. And the first time I went, honestly, it blew my mind. I was like, Jesus, this woman's really good. This is really powerful. I feel like I've had like the most incredibly powerful acupuncture session. And honestly, it really helps. Whether or not it's just about chilling me out, I don't care, because it made my tummy feel better. And so I've been sporadically going on and off like over the year. And I've decided I'm going to train you. You can do Reiki 1 where you learn how to Reiki yourself, and then you do Reiki 2 where you learn how to Reiki other people. And that is going to be my thing for 2024. I'm going to do it.
Wow.
But honestly, I've had these mad experiences where like I see colours, and I it's like meditating. It's like meditating.
That'll be the magic mushrooms you took before you went, though, Helen.
CBD.
Well, I always crack open those drinks because I don't bloody drink anymore. I get the CBD drinks, don't I? But honestly, there's all kinds of stuff that goes on. And
Helen, you only live down the road from me. Next time you're going for a gong bath,
well,
let me know.
I told you about
Come
this
and join
ages ago, and you've not come yet. You've not come.
Oh, I forgot then.
It's on a Monday or a Wednesday night, so you need to come. But hey, guess what? I got chatting to the woman next to me last time I went, and guess what? Hey, she was perimenopausal. And, so I was thinking, right, this is a thing for perimenopausal women, perhaps. But let me explain this, right? I sort of see different colours quite often when I'm having this Reiki, and at the end of it they say, oh, that's your blah blah chakra, and that's aligned to this colour. Well, I don't know what all the different chakras are called, but there's one like I quite often feel at the bottom of my on my abdomen, and that's, I don't know, they've all got names, right? They've all got names and they're all affiliated to different colours. So I'm like, well, I don't know about this stuff, so how am I experiencing seeing these colours when I'm getting this Reiki done if I don't know about it? We're going to have to do some investigation, aren't we, and find out.
We are.
Well,
it sounds fascinating, though, Helen. I am definitely up for experiencing it and trying to see colours myself.
Yeah. Sacral chakra is the one that you're talking about, I think.
Yeah. Well, so Reiki is like early 1920s teachings of, I'm not going to say the guy's name because it's Japanese, but he was a lay monk, and that's where people say it originates from, apparently.
Was he a lay monk because he was laid down all the time doing self-chakra?
Yeah.
Self-Reiki. Gong.
Well, I tell you what, I'll do my Reiki 2 and then I'll come over and Reiki you.
Excellent.
What rate are you charging?
Do you know what? Yeah. Do you know what we need? We need some gongs on this episode, and if we are going to appeal to women who go to Reiki, let's just get some gongs in every episode, and then just give them a false sense of security that we're just going to Reiki session.
Look, do you know what? I'm sure there's like a spirit. I'm sure there's a scientific reason behind, because there is something around like sound having an impact on your body.
Oh, definitely vibrations and all that, isn't it? Now I'm taking the mickey, Helen, but I actually am quite interested in it. Honestly,
yeah, there you go.
I did Indian head, neck, and shoulder massage course when I lived in Nottingham many years ago, and I went for weeks and I loved it. So that was all about chakras and all that. Inner peace.
There you go. You see, she's a secret hippie.
I'm hanging out with a bunch of hippies here. I really am. And I love it. Well, it's now time for you to hear from our guest for this episode. Hazel Schowell is a business psychologist and a coach who works with a lot of high-profile private and public sector organisations. She describes herself as a corporate mum. She's also, talking of podcasts, got her own podcast called Endings, which is all about how you navigate your way through the kinds of life transitions that we all experience at one time or another. And as well as helping other people through their lives, boy, does she have a big life story of her own. She has been through a lot and learned a heck of a lot from it as well. And we're really excited to have her on the programme and to hear her wisdom. Welcome, Hazel.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, there's so much to cover, so let's crack on. But first of all, business psychologist and coach. I suppose we all know what it sort of means, but what do you really do and what do you generally help people with?
I generally coach chief execs or senior leaders, national partners, things like that. When it's the balance between who they are professionally, how they feel about themselves, which has often been mightily neglected over a couple of decades, and then their social relationships. So it's trying to get a bit of balance. And that's why, yes, when I'm working for whole boards, I can look a bit like corporate mum. But the intention is I walk alongside execs to figure out how to, be a little happier.
And do they listen to you on the most part, or they sound like a difficult group of people to work with? I might be wrong.
The fabulous part about coaching is they're not listening to me. I just have to ask them really annoying questions. And so they're figuring it out themselves. Occasionally I do have a bit of, it's the joy of being late 50s when you can have a little bit of wisdom of, okay, here's how I experienced it, or here's what somebody else I've coached. I do that quite a lot where I pair people together. So you go talk to them.
And what about working with female executives? Because I'm going to assume that you've worked with plenty of them who are, juggling busy, important lives and experiencing menopause.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That I've coached a number of female chief execs for about 15 years where you sort of see them through a huge chunk of their career that includes everything from they're having their children for some it's their children leaving home. But then when it comes to the personal side, the menopause, the more you get to know people, then they do trust you to say, actually, I was really struggling in the board meeting because I couldn't concentrate and I was going a bit mental. Oh, I've suddenly got really ragey and I don't know why. I think, I might.
Oh, so you've helped a few women diagnose their menopause then?
Well, there's been quite a few. Why don't you go to the GP and get your hormone levels checked? Because obviously it's such a range as to when women can first start to be perimenopausal, but you don't always know. You can't make an assumption that, because you're that age, you're probably going to be going through it. Some start horribly early.
Well, yeah, in your own case, which we'll come on to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
But we've talked about this quite a lot on the podcast. But, it seems to be that, just when women are at the height of their powers and the height of their successes and being, given those responsibilities, it's when the menopause hits. So it's a really tough time for women in the workplace, isn't it?
Yeah, because they're juggling... especially if you're trying to keep it secret. But when you experience huge brain fog or, you didn't sleep and so you're exhausted and you're a bit crotchety, it's difficult then that people don't make it mean something about your performance rather than this is just a temporary phase. So like people see pregnancy now, or it's like it's a phase and it will end. There is a timeline to it. Now, of course, in menopause it can be 12 years, which is no pregnancy anyone's ever done.
Don't we know it? I know.
Really bad.
Yeah.
But that, I think the more, men and women can be educated about, every woman will go through this at some point. So, some earlier than others, but there is there's a natural rhythm to it.
And is part of your job giving them tips on how to cope with that in the workplace as well? What sort of stuff are you saying?
Sometimes, it's finding places to go for information, for support. But often it's just the solidarity of saying, this is normal. It feels like hell, but it's normal. And I think the more women can talk about it, then the better, because it normalises everyone's experience. You don't think, I am absolutely going crazy. I've known a few who've come to me saying, secretly, I think I'm losing it, or I think I've got dementia. And it's like, nope, go and get your hormones checked.
Do you work with any of the men in companies to help them understand how menopause might be affecting their colleagues, their employees?
Yeah, I did a fabulous piece of work with, it was actually the Nursing and Midwifery Council, but they created an online resource to educate all of their employees about menopause. And because often if, say, a nurse or a midwife has had a fitness to practice claim against them, and some of the reason that she wasn't quite on top form was menopause, well, she's risking losing her licence, her career, all for something that won't last forever. It is a temporary, and there are reasonable accommodations I think an employer can make. But it's an interesting one of really getting people to understand what are the symptoms, what can you do, also what's the myths. There's quite a few herbal remedies that just need to be binned. But those are the kind of things we put together.
So, Hazel, you mentioned before about keeping it secret. I mean, is that a really common response with the women that you work with in this environment?
Sadly, yes. I mean, as you said, Emma, the idea that you can be affected by this at the height of your career can, I think, encourage this climate of secrecy of I can't admit to having what feels like a difference or flaw or something that, I'm not performing at my best. I can't do that. I have to compete. So, yeah, I think that's the mindset I get usually when women first start, usually dancing around it a little bit, and you think, do you think you're perimenopausal? If you do, let's just talk about it. Let's put it on the table.
I mean, has that got any better, do you think, since the whole sort of Davina documentary and all the celebrities speaking out,
Yes.
Because I suppose from our perspective, we've been sort of part of this zeitgeist, I guess. We're talking about perimenopause and menopause, and it's easy for us to be in a bubble where we're like, well, we just talk about it, so therefore everyone's talking about it. So it's just really interesting to get your experience and your insights for places where actually it is a struggle still to talk about.
I think there are some areas it's a struggle, and just the same as I think there is an issue still culturally with ageing for women, and so it's all linked in with that, isn't it? It's a really visible reminder that we get older, and I was talking to one female exec who just said, guys get old and paunchy and grey, and they just become the kind of the wise old man. But we don't have a cultural equivalent of wise women now, and we need to kind of get that back. That
Definitely.
Older women have something really valuable to offer. But a part of that means we have to not worry so much about signals of ageing, that we are okay, that we have something really valuable that you can't get any other way than live.
Yeah, we need
Live
to be
a long time.
We need to be like the orcas, don't we?
Oh, yeah. It's kind of like tribal symbols of becoming a venerated elder.
Love that. I like the sound of
who's
that.
This old bird.
Do you know, when you said we need to be like the orcas, I pictured the orcs.
Oh, the whale.
No, I meant the whales.
I was thinking, but I pictured Lord of the Rings. I was thinking, why do we need to be like the orcs? Oh, my God. That's my brain this evening.
We don't need to kill elves.
Listen, you're in good company, Terri. But just in case you haven't listened to the episode with Kate Muir where we talk about orcas, they are the granny orcas are like the badasses, aren't they? And they sort of protect their tribe, and they go through menopause. And I think they're one of the few other animals, apart from this. Although I did hear on the radio the other day that apparently they think giraffes also go through menopause. So anyway, giraffes and orcas, we're in that crowd. But the granny, the granny whales, granny orcas are like badass, and they protect everybody and hold everyone together. So
I love it.
Yeah,
They're in charge, basically. They're in charge. They are the ones. Yeah. Anyway, let us direct questions more towards you and your life, Hazel, and your personal experiences, because we know that Effin hormones have caused you considerable problems over the years, haven't they, really?
Oh, yes.
Not us, obviously.
No.
Just your effing hormones.
Not
your
the
effing
podcast.
What have we done?
Honest Gov.
So let's start. I know there's a lot to talk about, but talking about endometriosis, because that really affected you, didn't it? Can you tell us a bit about what happened?
Yeah, it did. For a long time when I was younger, I used to think, wow, this period nonsense, this is horrendous. And it's only, again, by being able to talk to other women that you start to think, oh, maybe what I experience isn't normal. The whole, doing a lot of flooding on trains. I learned to just dress like a goth for many years. It's like always wear dark trousers because at some point you're going to get stuck. And the pain levels, and you can pass out from blood loss. So it was pretty shocking. What I thought was, and it is still a statistic, I believe, is that how long it takes to get diagnosed. Now, how many years you go with it being, it'll just settle down. No, it won't. And meantime, I've got, lesions sticking my bowel together. And so it was pretty bad. I had 4 operations to sort of laser off the endometriosis. But then that was once I'd got the diagnosis. For a while, they suspended almost the ovary function by using a prostate cancer drug. That was a lovely phase. So there just didn't seem to be a lot of options for endometriosis. They kept saying, really, what you need is menopause. So, like, basically wait till you're 50 and go through that.
Oh, crikey.
Really? Is that it?
And what age did the problem start quite young then as well?
Yeah, so I started periods about 16 and it was already very evident. But by then. So I think that sense of it feeling like a dreaded time. I think during any typical month, I might have 4 days of not bleeding. It's like, what? This is not a way to live.
Wow. Wow.
It wasn't like, when are you starting? And it was, when am I stopping? I might get a little bit of reprieve. So I think that's when the whole situation of realising, because that's the other side, they said, or have a baby, which is, go through menopause or have a baby. That'll sort your endometriosis out for a bit.
Do they say that to you?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a corker. We're like, not really possible for me right now. And at the time, you think, okay, well, I'll have a baby. And then, of course, I'm on 3rd marriage before I actually find someone I'd want to have a child with. And sadly, by then, it was too late.
Gosh.
Crikey.
So it did lead to infertility then?
Well, I think it was already affecting my capacity to get pregnant. Definitely. But it was more the brain tumour got in the way, and I genuinely thought I could have children. And then just before we got married, we went to see the gynecologist, and he was like, yeah, I mean, you might need help, but we can certainly help you to get pregnant. I was like, excellent, this is good. And then I went to see my neurologist, who just went, are you insane? What are you thinking of? He went, no, if you get pregnant, your brain swells in pregnancy. You've got too much scarring in your brain from surgery. And basically you will be dead or vegetative state. If you want him to raise your child, go for it. I was like, well, that's brutal.
Okay.
Wow.
But honest.
Well, we need to talk about the brain tumour then, because that's what happened to you, age just 33. Can you tell us a bit about that diagnosis and what happened there? Because this is quite an unbelievable story, isn't it?
Well, this had been a bit of a weird one in that a couple of times in my 20s, I'd felt like I was having strange symptoms of like walking through cobwebs. And they'd do a lumbar puncture and go, it's not MS, get on your way, lady. And you think, okay. But at no point did someone say, what looks like MS but isn't MS. And it was only when I was in that sort of 32, just turned 32, just set my business up. And I went to see a chiropractor of all people who just said, can you just put your feet together? Because, just do it for me. I put my feet together, fell straight over. And he went, yeah, I knew it. You've got no balance, but it's happened slowly and you didn't even realise. So then when I was lying on my front and he was doing the manipulation, he said, I'm just going to do to your, right-hand side what I've been doing to your left-hand side. And apparently he'd been sticking a safety pin all the way down and I hadn't felt it at all.
What?
So he thought it was MS and said, if I got what I think you've got, I'd want the best. Here's the name of the best. I hope you've got good insurance. And thank God I didn't cancel my insurance when I set the business up. I was like, at the time I thought, it's very expensive, private healthcare. Why would I need that? Almost cancelled it. Thank fuck I didn't. So I was seen within a day. Within 3 days, I had a diagnosis. It was all very fast from there because it took the neurologist 12 minutes to work out there was something wrong. That was it. Just tested reflex, went, yep, this is a thing. But when he then, because I'd convinced myself it was MS. He'd convinced me it was MS, drawn me the diagrams and everything. And I'd gone home and of all stupid tactics. Watch Jacqueline du Pré, the film, the cellist who died of MS. And of course, OMG. It was the only time I got really scared because I thought, I can't die like that. I just can't. I just can't face that. But when I then went for my diagnosis and he said, I'm really sorry, it's a brain tumour, I cheered. It went, unusual reaction. I was like, yes,
Only
it's
person
not
in
MS.
history. Yeah. Very unusual response, yeah.
Says no one ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a brain tumour. But actually it meant they could operate, and they operated pretty quickly. Took 2 goes. That's a phrase you never want to hear from a neurosurgeon. Didn't go quite as we planned.
Crikey.
Oh, it's horrendous. But that's the scar tissue that I'm then left with that will always give me a few problems when I get hot, stressed and tired.
But they also didn't. They told you to ring your family. They thought you were going to die.
Oh, yeah. I think the surgeons were being really kind and had told me, because I'd got very long hair at the time, cut your hair short and choppy, and then we won't need to take it all off and you'll feel better. And so they just took all of one side. It looked like I got a really severe undercut going on. But then what happened on the second surgery is a hair got in to the wound. And it was that infection that almost killed me. So they're surviving 2 lots of brain surgery, and it's a blooming infection. They just couldn't get it under control. They'd thrown everything at it, said you've got 0 white blood cell count, and said that's it, you've nothing left to fight with now. So we do want us to ring your family. And that's why nope, I do not want them rushing through the night to watch me die. So they'll either wake in the morning to sad news, or it won't happen because I'm so fucking stubborn. I'm not going to do it. And I got convinced. Plus, as I shared in my podcast, it was the bit I wasn't expecting to share originally, which is very strange near-death experience. I think due to the amount of opioids, all the opioids, and it was that I sort of drifted off and then felt someone sit on the bed and was stroking my hair and my head, saying "Eiter," which is what my German nanny used to say. And I was like, "What is this?" And I opened my eyes, and there's me at 50. Looking good.
And did you look like you look now?
No. Well, kind of, yes. I was bigger, and actually I hadn't thought that because I've always been size 8. And all the steroids and everything after my surgery, I very rapidly got to a lot more than that. And so, yeah, but I looked and thought, as my nana would say, bunny. I looked bunny. And it was really interesting because I looked happy and I looked successful. I thought, I was so vain. I was like, oh, check me out. I was looking good. And I could hear this conversation that apparently I was having with someone else going, no, she's got to stay awake. She needs to know it's worth living for. We've got 3 boys. She's got to fight. She needs to stay awake. It's going to be worth it. She's got to fight. And it was this, let her sleep. And at one point, this vision just said, and if it's too much, just sleep, love. And it's exactly how I talk to people. And you think, and I wouldn't have known, it was just sleep, love. And I thought, no, I'm not going to. I'm going to stay awake. And this fabulous nurse came in and went, what are you doing? Because I was struggling to sit up and I've got drains and all sorts in. And I said, I've got to stay awake. That's the only way I'm going to live through this. She went, right, I better put the kettle on then. And went and made me tea and toast all night, and we sat and chatted. Amazing woman.
And do you think as well as completely freaking you out, it really did spur you on to get through that night and then get better and live your life?
It did. It was like afterwards I thought, the scientist in me thinks that is the most creative vision my brain could have thrown at me to make me fight, because otherwise I was ready just to stop, to be fair. And
it's almost as though you were coaching yourself, because you're a coach, but your future self was coaching you, isn't it?
Yeah. It's deeply freaky. It's deeply freaky. Do you know what she needs? She needs a dose of 50-something cents. She's got to get it. The only bit that made me laugh about it shares that there was not a few years after when Ian and I were married, that I was sitting in the house looking around, and I looked, and I've got 3 male cats. I was like, bugger. I have got 3 boys. You lying witch. I was conned.
The whole prophecy came true.
It did, but I'm looking at my 3 boys going, and we actually called them the boys. It's like, I do have 3 boys, just not the kind I thought.
What a story, Hazel. Honestly, it just blows your mind, doesn't it? It really does.
Yeah, and of course after that there was quite a lot of recovery, wasn't there? There was a lot of you had to learn to walk again.
Yeah, three months in hospital. Couldn't walk, couldn't speak properly, couldn't use cutlery. Still can't do screw tops. That's evaded me for 20 years. But most of it, I got the walking back before I left hospital. And the only thing, though, I'd been taught by a male physio, and it was only when one of the nurses was walking back going, "There's something very wrong." It's like, oh, you don't sashay, you don't move your hips like a woman. You walk like a man now. So you walk really straight hip. So there was me and a bunch of nurses practicing sashaying up and down corridors to get there. And move, work it, baby, work it.
Could have got some drag queens in. That would have worked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So
it would have done.
Just stretch.
getting the movement going. Yeah, so a lot of rehab. I still have rehab. The fact that I'm 23 years in and I still have weekly physio, which I've just come back from.
Gosh.
It just doesn't stop.
It's a really long recovery, isn't it? And then part of it was a hysterectomy. Was that connected?
Well, that, I think once I was about to get married again, we went to get this advice, and that's when he said, no, unless you want him to raise your child.
Right.
Then I think after that, I probably lost a bit of hope around the endo, and I thought, do I really want to put up with all of this when I'm already dealing with neuro recovery? Do I want to deal with this as well, or have I had enough? And I probably was a bit easily talked into a hysterectomy at 42, because I thought the bit that was painful at the time, aside from having a gynae problem, was hope. It was the horrible idea that I could technically have got pregnant. But I mean, okay, I accept I couldn't have lived to carry the baby, but so it was all still possible. And I hated that. I actually needed it over, I think, and yeah, just stop with this. So I had a surgeon who just said, well, if we do a hysterectomy, you'll go handbrake turn into menopause immediately, but we can give you HRT, we can, there's things we can do, but immediately it will stop that part.
That's amazing that they said that, because a lot of women have hysterectomies and aren't warned that they're going to go into menopause and that their hormones are going to be gone. And I know people who've gone through that and haven't been offered HRT, haven't had anything explained to them, and have just gone absolutely mad, not knowing what's going on.
The one thing I don't think I was prepared for is what it actually meant, because I'm almost like blithely going, oh, yes, menopause, like the end of periods, that sounds ace, let's do that. And no sense of, actually, this is fundamental. And it was only when it was a bit too late, because I'd had the surgery, I talked to my cardiologist, who said, you've immediately aged your heart and lungs, your cardiovascular system. Gosh. And actually, if you could have done anything else, you should have done, to try and preserve your cardiovascular fitness. Now, at the time, though, the one thing with not just the brain surgery, but everything they discovered about while they were tinkering around was, I wasn't meant to live to 40. If I'd, even with getting through surgery, I wasn't meant to last. So part of me was like, oh, who cares? Just whatever years I've got, let's have some fun. Let's not have to worry about blooming, hormones and periods. Let's just stop. But in reality, I have beaten every prediction, and so I will hopefully be here for a very long time. But that does mean I have to deal with the consequences of some rash decisions in my 40s.
But were we prepared for all the sort of other side effects of the menopause, of which there are many, many?
Oh, no. Sitting in meetings, feeling like my pores are leaking when I'm just sweating and a bit foggy. And I had no idea. Brain fog I did not know about. Night sweats, I'd heard the phrase, but no idea what that actually meant when you're getting up to get changed in the middle of the night. And you think, what's this fresh hell? It's appalling.
It's not just a bit of sweat, is it? You need to change the sheets now.
Yeah. It's the, love, you might as well get up. You have to swim. Just awful.
Well, you know about that, don't you, Emma?
Oh, horrible. I don't miss those moments, but HRT has thankfully helped that significantly. Did you find the same once the HRT kicked in? Did it improve things?
It did. It was a miracle treatment. And, getting my thinking back, even controlling the hot flushes and the night sweats. I think it just made things feel like, okay, I can do this. I can still tell if I forget. So if I forget to take it or to use it, I use the gel. It's like I forget all over again. So I wake up in the middle of the night going, what? I think, oh, you've forgotten it a couple of days. Right. Get that gel on. Slap it on.
And what about your identity? Did you feel like it affected you mentally a lot as well, going through the menopause?
Unexpectedly, yes. I went through a phase, I think at my lowest, bearing in mind I am a ridiculously positive person with everything else I've gone through.
I'd say.
And yet, there was one phase where I caught myself saying, I feel pointless. I can't have children. Everything's, my reproductive system gone. It's like, what is the point of me? And it took a little while, I think, to bounce back from that, to be able to think, well, actually, there doesn't need to be a point to me. I'm like any living part of this planet. I just am, and it's okay. I'm not arrogant enough to think there needs to be a point to me. But it was an interesting moment to go, I feel pointless. And I think compounded by this attitude to women ageing of everything's about, oh, it's really good you don't look your age. Like, yeah, but I am my age. I've got arthritis, my joints go in, I've got everything else. I am 57. It's like, it's okay to be my age. Why am I trying to pretend to be younger? And I've clearly been frowning for, 50 odd years. But it is my one line.
Yeah. But it is mad, isn't it? It's like we all sort of grieve this part of our lives, and the fact that we can't reproduce anymore. It becomes this really significant thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's strange because it doesn't matter whether you've had children or not. So I've had friends who absolutely resolutely did not want them, and yet when they went through menopause, it's like, well, that's the last chance to change your mind, and it's gone, and now you are forever living with your choices. Because there's no more time to change.
We've talked about this quite a lot, haven't we, guys, on Effin hormones in the past? Yeah.
Yeah, and same with myself, that, I couldn't have children, but to be fair, I have such a ridiculously busy life that I'm not entirely sure. I probably would be one of those women who left the children in the supermarket. So, I think the
world... Have you done that yet, Emma?
I haven't actually, no, surprisingly. No. I've lost her in the house a couple of times. I'm like, found her in a cupboard. Terri, go on, you had a question.
I was just going to say, Hazel, this is quite a big theme in. So I listened to your Endings podcast where you normally interview other people, but you had the tables turned on you, and you had is it a psychotherapist who asked you questions? I can't remember her name.
It's one of the psychologists I work with.
Yes, she was brilliant. One of the things you talked about in that is that you gave some tips, but one of them was about integrating that loss. So even if it's a grief of things that you haven't done, or of the change in self-identity, including the not having children, whether or not that was a choice and then it was a decision made, those are things that we need to look at. And I don't know whether it's about in a certain time of our lives or just general advice for people you work with, but that integration of loss, I think, really sort of struck a chord with me, that I think we, as we're going through menopause, or as I'm going through menopause, a lot of things are changing, and it's about redefining myself. And I think some of that is accepting that there is a loss, even if, I might not have recognised it previously, or made decisions not to have kids, or other decisions about my career or what have you. It does feel like there is a lot of grief around this time.
Oh, I think there's a huge amount of grief, particularly when women can be made to feel that they have no right to grieve that. Like, oh, well, you chose not to have children, or, you didn't have, rather than it's irrelevant, that there is something really primal about that loss. And again, the language is almost as if, oh, you just need to get over yourself, or you need to get through it, rather than actually we need to integrate and be able to walk alongside it. So like any grief, there's a difference between grief and grieving. So that grief is the emotion that just flares up, and from time to time, I used to say we used to be little shoes, little socks. Always did it to me. I had to avoid certain parts of shops because it'd be like, I'd be standing there having a little cry. And you think, I was okay with the choice before. Why am I standing crying at little socks? This is ridiculous. But that's grief versus the grieving process, which you learn to walk alongside. And so it just gets gentler and more comfortable because, and one of the things that I lost 2 babies. And I went on a phenomenal family systems course that said rather than we pretend they never existed, that we are okay they did, and that part of the grieving and the letting go process is to radically include everything, even the babies that didn't get to be here for whatever reason. Include them. And so on that session, I chose a couple of little stones that represented the 2 babies, and I have a little glass heart that they live inside, and at Christmas it's hung on the tree because it becomes a thing that I'm okay to talk about it now. They were part of me, they lived for a bit, but they didn't get to be born. That's okay. And that's all part of, I think, being a woman and a woman's journey, that sometimes we have these experiences that we're always meant to pretend didn't happen and stick it under the carpet, and that's just a lumpy rug that trips everyone up. So I do think it's important to talk and form that new identity, because I definitely thought once I embraced being a sweary wise old bird.
Oh, you've embraced that.
Welcome to the club.
But it felt really good because it's like, actually, who am I now? Who am I when I'm freed from this, horrendous experience of periods before? Who am I when I am older? My body's changed as a consequence of going through menopause. And now I know I have old lungs, which is not a thing you think of. It's like, excellent.
A few of us ex-smokers have those as well, unfortunately.
Yes, unfortunately. I love that, Hazel. That's the importance of, recognising that things happened and being, one of the things we've always said on this podcast the whole time we've been doing it is making it okay to talk about. And that when we were talking about menopause, but, there's so much around women's lives and existence and the conditioning that we have to kick against that actually we need to make it okay to talk about and feel the emotions and express the emotions as well. So yeah, it's really powerful.
Well, that way it makes loss easier to bear. If you get hijacked by grief, it's easier to bear because people understand that some things will and also just the physical side of being more comfortable if someone realises, let's get the aircon on. You're melting. But all of those, just it being a comfortable conversation rather than something you've got to battle through on your own and feel like, well, if I'm not getting through it, is there something wrong with me?
Everything that you've been through, has that really helped you in your work, and has it really informed how you advise all your clients and how you coach people?
Yes, absolutely. I think there's 2 ways. One is I genuinely don't judge anybody. Usually when someone says, you're going to think really badly of me, I'm really, no. Life is too short, for many reasons that are not as part of a podcast. I've gone through an absolute Brazilian soap opera of a life. So, don't judge. It's also, the kind of cliche of don't sweat the small stuff. I mean, apart from done a lot of sweating in menopause, there is something about, when you've been through this, some things just don't matter. They really don't matter. And I see people agonising over decisions in life that, there's a lovely thing that I teach them about time, and that in our culture we are very obsessed about we call it chronos, and so how I was taught it was 3 types of time, all named after Greek gods. And chronos is the obsession with calendars, watches, and that's what I think gives this issue about how we think about time and what we've got to do, and I've got to pretend I'm on my game and keep going. And then you've got Kairos, which is the right time. And that's mellower and an interesting way of seeing that there are right times to do things and there's right times to stop things. And it's been okay. That's just life. There's time, a right time that feels good when you allow things to happen as they should. And then the final one is Aeon. And that's about universal time. So it's the idea of really stepping back. And I think when, as a woman, you can see your life in the whole cycle, everything just fades in huge importance. It just becomes, okay, so this is the cycle of things. This is normal. And compared to other lives, it just, some things that seemed so important at the time don't seem important. When I was first going for surgery, even down to cutting my hair felt like such a big thing. And I've had short hair since. It's like, actually, it's really easy to look after. I'm not growing it long again. And being skinny, that sense of identity of as a woman, and everything from, that joy of menopausal, gut that no one shares. You will get round, and that is no shape on any diagram of a woman you will be shown, rather than, yep, this is an interesting approach. And just, the way you lay down fat is changing, and the metabolism changes. We think, this is almost impossible to lose weight. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Because there's always this expectation of, oh, well, you're going to bounce back, I think, or not.
How do you get the joy of the gut? Because I still haven't got that.
I call it my buddy belly. There's
that's a good one.
really quite joyous. I give it a bit of a rub for luck. Oh, but sometimes
belly.
I find myself, I'm talking to people and I realise I'm actually like rubbing my stomach, or I'm holding a fat roll. I mean, it's
Holding
really
it up.
not a good. Yeah, when it's like,
I'm going to grab
just hold
mine
it,
now while we're talking
hold
about
it off my knicker line. When you can hold a roll of fat off your knickers, it's
Brilliant.
it's so wrong but so right. It's this is the joy people miss out on.
I love
I've
this.
earned this.
This is
I've
brilliant.
earned that roll of fat, especially
Yeah.
this
Oh, yeah.
Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah. This took a lot of work to get here.
Just love what you were talking about. What was it called? Aeon, the last
Aeon,
time.
yeah.
Aeon.
So that's universal time.
I don't know if you watched the Bridget Christie comedy series, The Change. And it's fabulous. Just everybody watch it. But she has this beautiful thing in like the last episode where they have this ceremony. She sort of takes back this very sort of male ancient ceremony from this like countryside village and turns it into like this beautiful, joyful celebration of transitions of a woman's life. When you were talking about the Aeon thing and the cycle of life there, it just reminded me of that. And yeah, I think that's sort of celebrating that actually this is all part of it and we have a place and the transitions are fine. And actually, there are endings here, but these can be joyful transitions as well,
Yeah, because that's as we've been talking. I talk a lot about endings, but something always begins after. It's just I think it's characterised as a time of ending and loss, and as if the end of your reproductive cycle is suddenly your end of usefulness as a human being. Rather, no, you'll just become something else, and then that becomes weirdly exciting because who am I when I can tell people to fuck the fuck off and sit there holding my gut?
Right on.
It's like, who is this person?
I like this person.
Life was glamour. Now I'm like, nope.
I love that.
It's brilliant, isn't it? How women's confidence seems to be a direct opposite direction to their actual physical bodiness and attractiveness. Like when I had my best body, when I didn't even have any cellulite in my thigh, I had no confidence. And now I've got loads of confidence and the biggest thighs I've ever had, and I don't care.
No, because that's the best thing. It's not giving it out because you just blossom. Although, you try to do the best you can to stay fit and healthy, but I just think there's something rather marvellous about going to seed for a bit. Again, it's a natural cycle of life. There's something funny about it.
You mentioned optimism before, and I feel like you have been so optimistic in all the way that you talk about. all of the crap that has been thrown at you and all of your, many health problems. Is that the key? And if so, to getting through it all as you have? And if so, how? How do you remain optimistic when you're having all those health problems and life crises all thrown at you all at once?
As in psychology, there's a famous piece of research by a guy called Martin Seligman who actually did very horrible things to dogs, but basically electrocuted dogs to see if they would move away from the pain into a more comfortable area. And of course, like any mammal, of course they do to start with, but then they stop. And what's interesting is over time, they start to just give up and accept the pain. Oh. And of course, the question was, well, do people do that? And yeah, they do. And I think that's the interesting bit when you can. And I think the researcher who led that study, I think was a bit depressed by it. So he flipped and spent the rest of his career, and still does, focusing on learned optimism. That even when things are terrible, you can learn to be optimistic. And the one thing that humans do that's a bit different is the way we describe negative events. So when people are getting pessimistic, they tend to make things sound like it's everything's going wrong, and it's always going to be like that. And of course you'd be hopeless with that if you think it's always going to be bad and it's never going to change. And the other thing, and it's all to do with the way to remember it, is 3 Ps, is permanence, pervasiveness and personalisation. And I think the permanence and pervasiveness is it always going to be this way, and is it going to affect everything? Whereas when you can just say, it's just this, and it's just now, and that's it. So even something big like range is right, okay, I will get through this or I won't. It's just this. But either way, it will be over soon. And then the final P is the personalisation. Unfortunately, this is something that women have a tendency to do, which is when things go wrong, we blame ourselves. And you turn it in. And it's like a dagger in the heart. But when you can learn to take the dagger out and go, who actually deserves this one? It's not me. And it's been able to recognise, so I've made it my fault. And it's not my fault. It's just now, it's just this, and it's not me. But that takes a bit of practice. You just keep going.
Cracking that personalisation bit has just blown my mind. I think, as soon as you hear that, you're like, oh, yeah. Well, yeah, women do that, don't they? Crikey.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the problem is, we take the blame and the guys will just let us because that's not the way they think. And similarly, you can learn, but it just sounds unfamiliar to hear women say, well, I wasn't given the resources, I wasn't given the support, it was an environmental reason. They're just finding reasons. Is she not able to accept accountability? You say, you can't win. So there is something around being able to express both, that I am accountable for my part in this, but no more than that.
Interesting. Poor dogs, though.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty grim. There's many vile studies in psychology that you kind of hesitate to share with people, going, I'm sorry, this is what we've done.
I saw a quote on your website, Hazel, which said, if you don't make time for your wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your illness. Read that again.
And read that again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was something else. I mean, listening to your podcast as well, it really just chimed with me. It was just like, oh, that's really, really wise words that, we're talking about time and the 3 types of time, but one of them is making time for yourself, isn't it? And making sure that you prioritise yourself, because as women, we don't, do we? We have everyone else. We have families, we have parents, we have work, whatever we're doing. And we are down that pecking order, and when things get busy, we get further and further down it. So that, yeah.
And if you think, we've talked about identity, and one thing that's different about female identity is we tend to be socially constructed. So it's all around our relationship to other people, who we are to other people in our lives. And, the upside of that, we can cope with redundancy better. I mean, weird upside, but when it comes to family, it's really hard to say, actually, I need this time, I need this space, I want to go and figure out who I am now, and you need to leave me to it for a bit, or whatever that is. That, and the slowing down is a really important part of not just rehab, but I think of life, of being okay, that I'm not going to race around doing things like that anymore. And that's okay. That doesn't make what I do less valuable. It's just, this is the way it needs to be.
Although if we race around a bit more, we might not have the spare wheel.
The gut.
Yeah.
That said, one of the people I've been interviewing today is the guy who's coaching me to lose weight. So I'm a stone and a half down. It's like, come
Yay!
on.
Well done.
A lot.
Good work.
Although even saying that, we're all like, we're enabling you
Well,
to
I
think
know
that
it's
weight
true.
is everything.
It's
isn't
conditioning.
it?
I know it's
Don't,
conditioning.
It's not a shameful. Get your gut out.
No.
Where's the
Yeah.
buddy belly? Oh,
Yeah,
sadly,
you're right.
again, the menopausal shape means the buddy belly's still there. It's smaller, but it's still.
I love the idea that it's lucky.
Yes, give it a rub for luck. Of course, if anybody else attempted to rub it, I would be really.
That would be weird.
Brilliant.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh. Well, thank
Thanks,
you, Hazel, so much for telling us your incredible story and for sharing all those brilliant tips as well and wise words. And if you want to check out Hazel's podcast, just search for Endings on all of your favourite podcasting apps. And that's it for this episode of Effin Hormones. We will be back in a month or so. Do write us a review or share the podcast so more menopausal people can join our gang. Love you loads. Bye.
Love you. Bye. Thanks, Hazel. Bye.